Choose trust over suspicion. Phil here with your evening Devo. That's coming from 1 Corinthians 13. And this is a thought that is not necessarily original with me. It is from Scripture. This is a thought that we learned about at Peak, our camping high school conference, and the speaker led on to this in his morning Devos, and I loved it so much, I would like to share it with you as well. Turn to 1 Corinthians 13 for me, 4 through 8. That passage is most commonly known as the love passage, and it's basically a working definition of, okay, you've heard of love, here's what it is, all right? And for our purposes, we're talking about philos, friend love. We're not talking about eros or agape necessarily, we're talking about philos love, relationships between two people as friends, whether it be co-workers, family, etc. And towards the end of 4 through 8, it's giving this definition of love is this, love is this, love is this. And it says, love rejoices with the truth, it always protects. And then it says this, it always trusts. In verse 7, choose trust over suspicion. That's what I opened with. Well, what do I mean by that? In a relationship, sometimes there might be a gap. And here's what I mean by that. You and someone else are communicating, you're interacting on some level, whether it's your family, a coworker, a pastor, someone you're randomly interacting with at the supermarket, whatever, and a gap forms. There's a miscommunication. There's an action that rubbed you the wrong way, and all of a sudden, instead of being like this, there's a gap here where you and the other person are no longer unified. You're kind of beginning to become divided. And in that moment, we can take one of two routes. Our initial reaction can be one of two routes. We can choose trust or we can choose suspicion. Let me start with the way that we typically do that is not the best way, suspicion. When I choose when I choose suspicion, in that instance was that when there's a gap, I place myself in control of how the rest of that relationship is going to be going for the foreseeable future. And I'm basically saying, I know that person's intentions, I know that person's heart, and I'm suspicious of it. And so I'm going to distance myself from that person, and we're no longer working as a team. That can be a friend, that can be a coworker, that can be your spouse, that can be your kids. And in that moment, division is in the foreseeable future. But what if we chose a better way? What if we chose, instead to be suspicious of other people, we chose trust? That's vulnerable. That's kind of hard. But what if we chose, when a gap happens, in that instance, we go, you know what? I'm going to choose to trust that person's intentions were good and holy. I'm going to choose to trust that person had my best interest in mind, or the group's best interest in mind. Even if I don't fully understand why they did what they did, even in this gap, I'm going to choose trust. Can I let you in on a little secret? When we choose trust over suspicion in a relationship, it helps us to be on the same team. It helps us to operate on the same team. Instead of operating divided, we begin to operate unified, even if we don't fully understand. You might be thinking, Phil, well, what if I choose trust and there's still like I don't really know. At that point, it's your responsibility to go talk to that person, communicate with them one-on-one and say, hey, this happened, can we talk about it? And then you go from there. But way too often, and I do this, that's why this is so close to my heart, honestly. Way too often, we see somebody's actions, we think we know, and we choose suspicion. And we think we know, hey, here's exactly why that person did what they did. I know. And what happens is there's this icky feeling towards that person, and it just stays there. But the challenge that I'm seeing in 1 Corinthians is, hey, you want to love your brother, you want to love your sister? Choose trust. When there's a gap, love trusts. So choose trust, my friends, over suspicion. Love you guys. I'll see you later.